All right. This morning we are going over First Samuel chapter 18, verses 5 through 16. First Samuel chapter 18, verses 5 through 16. First Samuel has been blessing me. I pray that it's been blessing you all. I enjoy teaching over First Samuel. There are so many powerful passages in it, and it is one of those books where there's just a lot to take from it. But we're going to just focus on a few verses at a time here. So First Samuel chapter 18, verses 5 through 16. And the title of this sermon is, What Do You Do When Your Enemy is Your Leader? What do you do when your enemy is your leader? Now, a lot of us have had leaders who probably couldn't stand us, leaders who probably wanted nothing to do with us, leaders who were probably threatened by us, leaders who just wanted to do everything in their power to destroy us, whether it was putting more work on our plate, whether it was putting us in projects or giving us assignments or giving us deadlines that honestly we didn't even have time to meet because of the short notice, but they were doing things to try to put us in a position where we would fail. They were trying to do things or put tasks on us, assign tasks to us to maybe make us weak, to draw us out. Maybe you were a high performer on the job and your leader was threatened, and maybe you just continue to just perform just exceedingly above. You exceeded all of your peers' performances. You exceeded the sales. You exceeded it all. And maybe your leader felt threats and your leader felt like, this person is doing a phenomenal job. They're knowledgeable. And if they continue to go down this path, if they continue to do this great, I know that my job may be on the line. We see this not only in Fortune 500s, this also takes place in many different it can even be not-profit organizations. It can just be amongst many different industries. It doesn't just have to be a Fortune 500, but there are many people today who are innocently working, who are just doing work unto the Lord, who are doing their absolute best to be committed. And what happens? Their leader becomes jealous. Their leader becomes afraid. And now as a result, their leader becomes their enemy. Here it is when one is doing well and one is just doing what God has called them to do, when one is doing exactly what God has purposed them to do. And now they got another man or another woman who is threatened, who is jealous, and they're trying to figure out, what am I doing wrong? Why can't my leader stand me? I'm bringing the customers in. I'm bringing the money in. God has opened up many doors for our business to prosper, but it just seems like the more I succeed, the more they hate me. Many of us have been in that position before. And today we're going to focus on 1 Samuel, like I said, chapter 18, verses 5 through 16, where we're going to see David went through that with King Saul. Starting at verse 5 here. So David went out wherever Saul sent him and behaved wisely. I'm going to pause right there really quick. I know we're only on verse 5. Notice here, David went out wherever Saul sent him. David was a mighty, 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 mighty warrior. Remember, we spoke about Thursday night. David did not back down from any battle. He knew that the battle was the Lord's, and he knew that wherever the Lord sent him, even if it was King Saul, even if it was God working through King Saul, he knew that wherever he went in battle, the battle was the Lord's, and as a result, David had the victory. But notice here, when David went out wherever Saul sent him, he behaved wisely. What do you do when your enemy is your leader? Number one, you behave wisely. You behave wisely. Anyone who's worked for any company, you know that maybe if you're ever at a function that is represented by the company, maybe you're at some event, you're speaking to a client, the way in which you behave represents the company. It can be your own company. And when you have your own company, it actually puts things even to different perspectives. You want people to respect your company. You want your company to have a good reputation. You want your leader to have a good reputation. You want to have a good reputation. You want your brand, whatever it may be. But it doesn't matter whether it's your own company. It doesn't matter if it's somebody else's company. The key thing is, you want to behave wisely. It's that reputation piece. That reputation. You don't want anybody to use anything against you or to even use anything against your business or the company in which you work for. So wherever Saul sent David, David behaved wisely. So whatever assignment your leader gives you, whatever project your leader or leaders give you, wherever your leaders may send you, they may say, you know what, we need you to go here. We need you to handle this. We need you to do this. Even if you don't feel like doing it, you behave wisely. You behave wisely. David behaved wisely. Let's continue on here in verse 5. And Saul set him over the men of war, and he was accepted in the sight of all the people, and also in the sight of Saul's servants. He was accepted in the sight of all the people, and also in the sight of all of Saul's servants. So, ladies and gentlemen, we must remember that the Lord, he put David here in this position where he was now over all the men of war. After he had defeated Goliath, after all these men who had been soldiers for many years, they were afraid. But David said, why are you all afraid? Do you not know that God will fight your battles? After David defeated Goliath, I'm sure he impressed many men, but he also impressed King Saul. Saul saw his courage. Saul saw the bravery. And Saul, as a result, made David, he put him in a position that put him over the men of war. And David was accepted, and he was also seen in a good light. He was accepted by all the people, and he was accepted by all of Saul's servants. When your leaders put you in a position over others, you may very well, as God's children, we may be accepted by other people. Whether the previous leader, whether the previous CEO, the previous president, the previous director, the previous manager, the previous team lead, whoever was the leader, they may not have been accepted by each and every person. They may not have received the same type of compliments that you are going to receive, but that is because God's hand is on your life. God is with you. But even when you do so, you behave wisely. You behave wisely. You remain humble. Notice that it was God who was promoting David. David wasn't doing anything extra. David was obedient. David behaved in a wise manner. And as a result, God promoted him. That's what's going to happen with you all. That is what happens. That is working. That's when you have a kingdom mindset. You know what? I know that if I do my work well, I know that if I'm committed, I know that if I'm obedient, I know that the Lord is going to promote me. I'm not going to have to fight my battle. The Lord is going to do it for me. Does this mean that you won't ever have to submit another job application? No, that is not what I'm saying. Some promotions may require that. You have some leaders who say, hey, I'm going to open up this position. I think it'll be very wise for you to apply. You got to apply to it in order for us to promote you. That is okay. That is God that has opened up the door. Some businesses have it set up where the leader can literally just come to you. They don't have to create another requisition. You don't have to apply to anything. They just say, hey, we're going to promote you. And that's how it was with David here. He didn't have to submit an application. Saul just came to him and said, David, you're a mighty man of valor. You had no fear. You were brave. You went out and you fought the battle. Although David told everybody it is the Lord who fought the battle. You went out, you defeated Goliath. Now I want to promote you and make you over all the men of war. David remained humble and he behaved wisely. Let's go on to verse 6 here. Now it happened as they were coming home, when David was returning from the slaughter of the Philistine, that the women had come out of all the cities of Israel, singing and dancing to meet King Saul with tambourines, with joy, and with musical instruments. So I love how we see here. Here it is, the men have returned home from war, and the scenery is these women are coming out from their homes. They're coming out from all these cities, and they're rejoicing. They're playing these songs. They're playing the music. They're shouting. They're excited for these mighty men to come home. A lot of these men, many of the women were probably attracted to for how brave they were, for how strong they were. But I want you all to notice something here. Let's keep going here. Verse 7. So the women sang as they danced and said, Saul has slain his thousands and David his 10,000. Saul has slain his thousands and David his 10,000s. Imagine how Saul felt when he heard that. Here it is. The women, they weren't even at war with the men. They weren't on the battlefield. They were nowhere near. And here it is, All we know about at this time is that David went out and he destroyed Goliath, but he also went out after he destroyed Goliath, and he and Saul's army, they went out and they destroyed the rest of the Philistines that accompanied Goliath. Here it is, word had already traveled back home, back in Jerusalem. Word had already traveled that David was a mighty man. David was a mighty warrior. David was killing the enemy left and right. David had no fear. David knew that the Lord was with him. It didn't matter how big or how tall a man may have been. David, even as a teenager, went out and fought the battle. Or as a young man, however old David was. Here it is, word had already traveled. And you have this man who has been a king for some years now. He's receiving less of a praise, less of an honor than the young man who just fought in his first battle, we can say. His first, I know that David fought bears, he fought lions, he fought wolves, but as far as a military battle, this is the first one that is recorded. This is the first one that we're aware of. This was David's first military battle, and here it is. He's already receiving a higher praise. They said Saul has only slain thousands, but David tens of thousands. Verse 8. Then Saul was very angry, and the saying displeased him. And he said, they have ascribed to David 10,000s, and to me they have ascribed only thousands. Now what more can he have but the kingdom? Now, see, already here, Saul is beginning to be filled with envy. The leader is beginning to be threatened by this individual who performed better than them. Even though Saul is king, he is threatened by a boy. He is threatened by a young man who just fought in his first military battle. Why is that? Because Saul recognized, and we're going to read it later on here, it's even recorded in this passage. Saul recognized that the Lord's hand was on David. He recognized that it didn't matter what David did. It didn't matter what he sent out David to do. David was going to prosper. David was going to be victorious. That happens with each and every one of you. That happens with me. That happens with all of us. It seems as if it doesn't matter what assignment we give these people. It seems as if it doesn't matter what project we give Cameron. It doesn't matter what assignment we give him. It doesn't matter what we ask him to do. It is always done with excellence. It doesn't matter what I ask my daughter to do. It doesn't matter what I ask my son to do. It is always done with excellence. And the world will be jealous. The world will try to understand. They're trying to make sense of it. How is it that this person has little to no experience? How is it that this person just continues to excel, and they continue to grow, and they continue to be so prosperous, and they continue to do so great? You'll have team members who are jealous of you. You'll have a team lead who's jealous of you. The manager will be jealous. The senior manager will be jealous. The director will be jealous. The vice president, the president, and maybe the CEO. Somebody's eyes are going to be watching you saying, we hear this name, we see this person, but how is it that they just grow so quickly? How is it that they catch on so quickly? How is it that they perform at a level that some people who have been here for 10, 15, 20 years don't even perform at? Some people become threatened. Because, for instance, let's say you are performing better than maybe your manager. Let's say you receive great customer feedback. Let's say people look at you and say, oh, you should be the manager. Why don't they have you in that position? And let's say your boss's boss hears that. They're going to start to pay attention. They're going to start to say, what is it about this person that makes them stand out more than the leader that I have in position? And they'll want to think about everything. Now you're going to have this manager who's probably going to be keeping a close eye on you. And they're either going to do one of two things. They're going to put you on more assignments. They're going to put you on more projects to try to tear you down, to try to bring your performance down, to make you weak. It's not even to help you. It's not to support you. It's not to strengthen you. It's to really stress you out, hoping that, maybe if I give them a little too much work, maybe they won't perform as great. But see, they don't know that as children of God, God never gives us more than what we can bear. So it doesn't matter what work man may try to give us. God, we're going to look at them and say, you can give me 50 assignments. Guess what? God is going to give me the strength. He's going to give me the knowledge, and he's going to give me the wisdom to complete all in an exceeding manner, in a great manner, in a well manner. And you can give me less. Some leaders may at that point try to give you less work. They may try to give you less assignments to keep your name off the grid. But what they don't realize is that God's hand is in everything that you do. So whether you give me one project out of the year, whether you want to help me out with one sale this year, whatever it may be, guess what? That one sale will be the greatest sale in the entire year. That one sale will be recognized on all the doors, on all the markets that entire year. You know why? Because God is with me. There are leaders today who become angry. There are leaders today who become threatened. And I'm not speaking against any specific leader. I'm not speaking against any specific pastor. I want to make that clear here. That is not my intent at all. I'm just giving you all the Bible here. David went through this. David served faithfully. He was obedient to God, and he served King Saul as he was called to do. And here it is yet in David David being obedient and David serving well. Here it is, Saul became angry because of how David had the victory, because of how the crowd praised David. David wasn't looking for the praise. David wasn't walking around saying, I slain 10,000s and Saul only slain 1,000. I chopped off the head of Goliath. I did this, I did that. No, David returned home, I imagine, silently walking behind the king, just waving, embracing the crowd, embracing all the women who are coming out, excited that the men are returning home. And I'm sure it probably shocked him when he heard what was being said. Now, I imagine if we put ourselves in David's shoes, I imagine how probably uncomfortable he was too. Now, if I'm going to be real, I probably would be a little quiet. You know, when you sit here and you hear people say, well, you're performing better than the leader. You're performing better than the senior. You're performing better than this person. You're doing better than them. You probably naturally go, uh-huh. Now you have some people who are arrogant, who are prideful, who will say, yeah, I know, that's why I should be in that position. That's why I should be doing that. But when you have a heart after God's, when you are a man or a woman after God's own heart, you keep yourself humble. You go, no, I just did what the Lord has called me to do. I give God all the glory. No, God has them in that position for a reason. I'm just here to do the assignment in which he has given me in this time, in this season, in this place. David walking here. He wasn't boasting. The women were just shouting what word has spread. And I imagine that this was even Saul's own army who was spreading this word, probably sending letters to their wives at home. Hey, y'all won't believe it. Our king is great. Saul is great, but there's another young man here. This dude is different. His name is David. Nothing against our king, but this young man is different. Y'all should see how brave he is, how on fire he is, how he goes out. He is not afraid to face the enemy. He faces the enemy head on. There is no hesitancy whatsoever. This man is different, and he's slain tens of thousands. We've seen him in battle, just taking one enemy after the next. David, I'm sure, isn't always aware of this. He comes home and hears this for the first time. And I'm sure he goes, oh, wow. Word has spread. People are saying this. Wow. So verse 9, let's keep going here for the sake of time. So Saul eyed David from that day forward. Remember, I told you all at the beginning here, when you're prosperous, when you do well, especially when you're not in a leadership position, and even when you are put in a leadership position, David had already been set over men of war, but he still had leaders above him, a leader above him. Even when you are in a leadership position, your leader can possibly still be keeping their eye on you because they see how successful, they see how prosperous you are. And they know this person is a threat to my position. This person is a threat. This person is doing so well. I need to keep an eye on them. Saul, he eyed David from that day forward. He was jealous. He was threatened. Verse 10, and it happened on the next day that the distressing spirit from God came upon Saul, and he prophesied inside the house. So David played music with his hand as at other times, but there was a spear in Saul's hand. Now, you all remember, just for context's sake here, the spirit of God was removed from Saul, and God has sent this tormenting spirit. And the spirit tormented King Saul. But anytime King Saul was tormented, David would take his, today we say a harp. It just, the Bible tells us his instrument, but I'm going to say his harp, and David would just play it. It was peaceful. And when he would play it, the tormenting spirit could no longer torment Saul. That's why I tell people there's power even in music. Notice here, it wasn't trap music being played in Saul's ear. It wasn't country music. It wasn't R&B. It wasn't any electric. It wasn't any of that. It was this peaceful, I imagine, classical music, this very peaceful music that clearly God was in the midst of. That spirit couldn't torment Saul while that music was being played. But here it is, David is playing this music, but at this time, there's a spear in Saul's hand. Verse 11, and Saul cast the spear, for he said, I will pin David to the wall. But David escaped his presence twice. Here it is, the king of Israel. He tried to kill David twice. Here it is. While the leader is being tormented, David is in the midst trying to bring peace. David is in the midst trying to calm down his leader. He knows that, hey, as long as I play this harp, as long as I play this instrument, as long as I play this, I know that Saul will be calm. Saul will be at peace. But here it is. Saul, he is threatened. Saul is envious. He sees that this young man has the potential to be the next king of Israel. He sees that this young man is a mighty warrior. He sees that this young man is highly respected by the people. And instead of honoring one of God's anointed, instead of saying, you know what, I want to mentor you. I want to help you. I don't know what God has in store for you, but I want to be on your right side and not on your bad side. Saul tries to kill God's anointed one. And many people today, they'll try to kill a dream that they feel threatened by. They'll try to kill a man or a woman, and killing doesn't mean you got to physically murder or slaughter the person, but they'll try to kill them by stressing them out. They'll try to kill them by being a burden, by placing so many things on their shoulders. Saul, in this case, he was actually trying to kill David. That's why he threw the spear at him. He wanted David to be hung on the wall. David, let me tell y'all how David was a man after God's own heart, because I know that if somebody threw a spear at me once, I'm not fooling with you anymore. We're just going to be real here. I'm not messing with you anymore. Look, you were being tormented. Here I am. If I was David, I'm saying I'm trying to play this calming and peaceful music to calm you down. I know that there's an evil spirit on you, but I know that God is with me, so I'm going to calm you down. I'm not over here even talking about you. I'm not over here trying to cast the evil spirit out of you. I'm not over here running my mouth talking about how evil and how possessed you are. I'm just trying to play some music, and you have the audacity to throw a spear at me? You have the audacity to try to kill me? Here I am. I'm performing my best. Here I am. I'm doing my absolute best. I'm not boasting about myself. I'm not talking about myself. Here I am just trying to do what God has called me to do, and you try to kill me not once, but twice? I want nothing to do with you. I'll respect you. I'll honor you. But I'm going to just be praying, God, you've got to deal with that person. But David, as a man after God's own heart, this is why I say we got to really look at how David did things. He still served Saul. He still humbled himself before Saul, because David wasn't so worried about being on the throne. David wasn't worried about, you know what, the people are praising me more, the people are complimenting me more. We've got to get rid of Saul. Prophet Samuel has already anointed me. Why is Saul still on that seat? But David trusted God's timing. Let's go on here, verse 12. Now Saul was afraid of David, because the Lord was with him, but had departed from Saul. Ladies and gentlemen, some of you may have leaders who are afraid of you. And you can tell they're afraid of you by the way they talk to you, by the way they distance themselves from you, by the way they attack you. Some of your leaders are afraid of you. You know why? Well, let's go back to Ephesians 6. We battle not flesh and blood, but the principalities and the evil spirits of the air. We battle not flesh and blood. There's a spirit that are on some leaders. Because if a leader is not God-fearing, if a leader rejects God, there are people in positions, in leadership positions, where they got themselves there. God ain't got nothing to do with it. Yes, God chooses who becomes leaders, and God chooses where he's going to place certain people. But guess what? If his hand ain't on them, they are threatened. That spirit that is in them, they are threatened when they know this is one who has the spirit of God on them. This is one who, it doesn't matter what they do, God's hand is going to be on it. He's going to bless it. He's going to prosper it. He's going to anoint it. We've got to get rid of them. Saul was afraid of David. Some of you have leaders who are afraid of you. Let's keep going here. Verse 13. Therefore, Saul removed him from his presence. Some of you may say, why is it that I'm no longer invited to these conferences? Why am I no longer invited to the team meetings? Why does it feel like every time somebody is when the team is gathering, they have me off doing something else? While it's a blessing and I have the opportunity to meet other people and to, I add this all to my experience. Why can I never even, be at the Christmas party with the leader? Why can I never be in the meeting with the leader? Why am I never being recognized? Why am I always being the one put to work? Your leader's afraid of you. Therefore, Saul removed him from his presence. And then notice this: Saul made him his captain over 1,000. And he went out and came in before the people. Saul, now some people may say, well, Cameron, look at that. David was promoted again. You absolutely right. God had David promoted again. But Saul's motive was not pure. Saul made David captain over 1,000 because Saul wanted to make sure that, one, David was no longer in his presence. He didn't want all the women. He didn't want all the young boys in the city. He didn't want all these people looking up to David. And number two, I know it for a fact, if Saul tried to kill David twice in the palace and failed at it, he was hoping David would be killed in the midst of war. And that is why I say sometimes you will be promoted. Sometimes you will be given more responsibility. And as believers and sons and daughters in Christ, yes, it is a blessing to us, but God knows the heart or the motive of your leader. And this is not every leader. I'm just speaking to those who are threatened by you, to those who the enemy has specifically tasked, who the enemy has specifically chosen to come after you. Here it is. Saul sent him out hoping he would be killed. Some of your leaders send you out hoping you fail, hoping you stress, hoping you worry, hoping they can just get you to a place where you say, you know what, I can't do this anymore. But when God is with you, you can do all things in Christ, in whom it is possible. All things through Christ. When you have that mentality, and when you know that the battle is the Lord's, and when you know that you have the victory in him, it's going to confuse leaders because they're going to say, I can't make it so noticeable that I'm trying to break them, that I'm trying to tear them down. But it just seems as if it doesn't matter what I ask them to do, what I assign them to do. They just continue to do well. They keep coming back alive. They come back with more energy, it seems like. Just last week, at the end of the week, they were looking tired. They were looking exhausted. But here it is this Monday. It just seems like they've been rejuvenated. It seems like they just keep getting this extra boost, and I don't know how. I've heard they don't even drink coffee, and yet they still perform well. I heard that they don't take the 5-hour energy. They don't do some of the other things that the teammates do, and they still do well. I don't know what else to do. And some of you may be very well aware of this. And you may say, Cameron, what am I supposed to do? Verse 14, and David behaved wisely in all his ways, and the Lord was with him. When you know that your leader is your enemy, God may very well reveal that to you. When you know that the enemy may be working through a leader to come after you, to tear you down, to break you down, to stop you from doing the very purpose that God has assigned, has called you to fulfill, you behave wisely in all your ways. You don't go on Facebook talking bad about them. You don't go to your friends. You don't go to your family members. You don't talk bad about them. You don't sit here and say, well, let's devise a plan to get them out of here. You don't have to run to HR. You don't have to write a letter and say, hey, this leader has continued to do this against me. Da, 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 da. Guess what? God sees it before HR even heard about it. God has already seen it. He already knows about it. God will take care of that leader just as he took care of King Saul. Your destiny is not the throne. Your purpose is not to dethrone one so that you can be on the throne, so that you can say, well, we're going to do things better. We're going to do things God's way. You let God handle that. And some of us, we don't want to let God handle things because we think he moves too slow. No, God's timing is perfect. You behave wisely in all your ways. Verse 15, therefore, when Saul saw that he behaved very wisely, he was afraid of him. You behave wisely. You don't have to curse out your leaders. Your leader shouldn't be afraid of you because of how they may say, oh, this person has an anger problem. Of course, you're not going to be promoted because they're not going to trust that you're going to be able to handle some uncomfortable conversations professionally. You shouldn't be going to Facebook because then your leader may see that, somebody may share it with them and may say, well, I definitely don't want to promote them because who's to say they won't bash the company? Who's to say they won't bash one of their direct reports? Who's to say they won't do that? Saul wasn't afraid of David because of David trying to overpower him, because of David trying to curse him out, or because of David running to other people and telling on Saul. Saul was afraid of David because David behaved wisely. Ladies and gentlemen, you got to behave wisely. Your leaders should fear you because they should see it doesn't matter what I do. I just can't seem to get under their skin. And they'll be afraid of that alone. Are people afraid of you because of your wisdom? Or are they afraid of you because of your foolery? Last verse. But all Israel and Judah loved David because he went out and came in before them. When you behave wisely, even if you're not a leader and God has called you to be a leader, guess what? You behave wisely in this season and you continue to serve people. Oh, people will love you. People will talk about you. But you don't do it for the love of people. You don't do it for man. You do it for God. So, ladies and gentlemen, what do you do when your enemy is your leader? You behave wisely. In all your ways, behave wisely. And I'll stress this one point again. Anyone who is your leader should not be afraid of you because of foolery. They should fear you because of your wisdom.